Hey there everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy. This is the Game Vault, and we just can't stop talking about Ubisoft, so let's just do it again today. Let's cue up the music and we'll get right into it. Alright, so I got three little stories we're going to go over today. We're going to go over them pretty quick. I'll link to them all down below, but Ubisoft is in 100% meltdown mode. If they survive 2024, which they will, of course. I'm not going to go out on a limb and, pitch all doom and gloom, because that's just being a little disingenuous. But they are hurting really bad. Their stocks are down, 90% over the past year? That's brutal. Last two major games they released are not doing so well, and it turns out a free-to-play game, which we're going to look at tonight a little bit, isn't doing that well either. Their flagship series, Assassin's Creed, the latest entry in that, is being delayed several months until next year. Why? Maybe to keep 2024 from being a complete disaster and mitigating some of the damage, moving it onto a different fiscal year so that they've got a better chance of recovering. Because if it releases this year and flops, I don't know what's going to happen. People are calling into question the leadership. Investors are calling into question the way the company is doing things, doing business, and it's just an absolute craziness. But right here, French Video Game Union calls for Ubisoft employees to strike as company teeters on the brink after Star Wars Outlaws failure. Yikes. A French Video Game Union Syndicate, Video Game Union, the Syndicat des Travailleurs, says de jeux vidéo, I don't know how to say all that stuff, calls for Ubisoft employees to strike as the company teeters on the brink following its huge failure with Star Wars Outlaws and delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows to February. I guess Star Wars Outlaws did not meet expectations. It was down about 30%, estimated 30% or so. Anyway, they called for the Ubisoft employees to strike on October 15, 16, and 17 after the company demanded employees begin working in the company's offices for 3 days per week for all employees. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. So, COVID really fucked up the workforce. It really did, especially the younger people, like millennials. I would say more Gen Z than millennials. Gen Z seems to be practically unhireable at this point. But, the whole working from home thing and getting people to work from home, it really spoiled people because people realized, hey, I can work from home, I can collect a paycheck and do, a fraction of the work I would do if I was actually at work, and being held accountable for my time. So it's absolutely crazy, and then now everybody's mad that they have to go back to the office and all that because the greatest pandemic in the history of humanity that was going to wipe out the whole human race ended up going by as just a little blip on the radar. Now everybody wants you back in the office again because they realize, hey, we're getting rooked. Why do you think games cost so much? People are not utilizing their time correctly. I'm sure that's a huge factor in the bloated cost of making games anymore. But anyway, the union also shared that it believes Ubisoft made this move given it knows the consequence of its decision will be the loss of our colleagues' jobs, the disorganization of many game projects, and the drastic increase in psychosocial risks for those who remain. Anyway, furthermore, it noted this decision is announced immediately after the failure of the profit-sharing negotiations. Exactly like previous salary negotiations, management's proposals were unacceptable, the negotiations timetable was appalling, and management was deaf to the proposals of the various employee representatives. Given this, the union stated, to express our anger, we call all Ubisoft employees in France to a first strike on October 15, 16, and 17. Well, it's kind of hard to share profits if you guys aren't making any. So I can see why nobody would be happy with profit sharing right now, because there's not a lot of pie to go around. Everybody's going to get maybe some crumbly crust, a little bit of Cool Whip. I don't know. The union then shared its demands from Ubisoft. First, it wants a formal agreement on remote work with a due process of real negotiation between management and unions, not an arbitrary decision taken several months in advance. One which guarantees that each person can freely choose its number of remote days and when they are in a week, as well as being counted by the month and not by the week. Second, the union demands an immediate increase in all salaries to compensate for the drop in our living standards in recent years, the restoration of profit sharing to a 60% objective, the end of the gender pay gap, oh god, and a higher increase in low salaries. The gender pay gap, you guys have all women working for you there. If there's any gap, it's the amount of men you have working there. And finally, it wants Ubisoft to listen to employee opinions by the implementations of a social dialogue worthy of the name. Management seems indeed to confuse monologue with dialogue. Anyway, the call for the strike comes the day after Ubisoft announced it was delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that it was lowering its significantly reduced its net bookings outlook for the second quarter by 30%. It also lowered its yearly net bookings to 1.95 billion and revealed that it expects around break even. Yeah, not a good year. So that's one thing going on right now. Yikes. But the second thing we're going to talk about here real quick is this. Ubisoft appears to confirm rumors that XDefiant is struggling, says it was behind expectations for the game. This seems to be a theme lately with Ubisoft. Everything they do is not working out right. Now, I haven't heard a lot about XDefiant. I mean, I heard, it was pretty good gameplay and stuff like that, but again, it's another shooter in a market that's just oversaturated with these things. If these are the characters, they don't look nearly as horrible as Concord, but what do we got? Pink mohawk here, little mouse ears, very kind of queery, wokey looking characters here. Nothing special. Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot appeared to confirm rumors that the company's free-to-play shooter is struggling by confirming it was behind expectations. And at the end of August, Tom Henderson, an insider gaming, reported that XDefiant was seeing continuously declining player numbers and a lack of player spending. Yeah, people aren't going to be spending money on skins and all that kind of stuff if there's no one in the game and they just feel like the game is dying on the vine. There's no point in it, right? If the game's hopping and happening and there's lots of people and easy to get into a match and all that, lots of action, growth in the game, yeah, they're going to spend the money. But if it's just kind of teetered along on life support, I know I wouldn't want to give any money to that, because who knows how long you're going to spend $15, $20, $100 on skins and all that, and then 3 months down the road, it's all gone because they shut down the servers? Yeah, no thanks. He reported that one source informed him that the game has been struggling to obtain 20,000 concurrent players across all of its platforms. Ouch. Another source shared Ubisoft would probably be happy with that number. This suggests that the concurrent player number counts are much lower than that. In fact, Henderson also shared that if the game does not turn around things by Season 3, it risks losing its much-needed post-launch support. Yeah, they might just put it on life support, then for a couple months milk every penny they can out of it, and then shut it down. Who knows? For comparison, other team shooter games such as Apex Legends are regularly above 50,000 concurrent players. Apex Legends clocked in at almost 200,000 in its last 24 hours. Valve's Deadlock had a 24-hour concurrent of 119,000. Team Fortress 2 had a 24-hour 56,000 concurrent players. Counter-Strike 2 had over 1.3 million concurrent players in the last 24 hours. PUBG Battlegrounds had 681,000. Call of Duty had 75,000. Wow, Overwatch 2 had 52,000. So even Ubisoft's Rainbow Siege 6 had 65,000 peak concurrent players in the last 24 hours. Now, while the exact numbers are not confirmed by Ubisoft, CEO Yves Guillemot did admit that the reason the company lowered its second quarter revenue expectations 30% from 500 million to 350 to 370 was due to soft sales for Star Wars Outlaws and XDefiant. During the company's most recent trading update call, Nicholas Langlet of BNP Paribas questioned, so the Q2 guidance, is it only Star Wars Outlaws or is there something else underperforming in the portfolio? And Guillemot responded, it mostly reflects the softer than expected sales for Star Wars Outlaws. We also had behind expectations for XDefiant, which we'll give you a bit more detail at the end of October. So I guess they're still collecting data on that one. It will be interesting to see if it really is taking a dump or if it's just hitting a little lull there. It's such, I don't know much about XDefiant. I didn't hear anything like crazy about it, like it's Concord levels of woke or whatever, but knowing Ubisoft, they cut corners on it, and it's probably mediocre at best, and it's competing against some very good games that have deeply entrenched player bases that they're not going to be able to draw the players away from. I'm sorry. Even a free-to-play game. I play Ark Survival Ascended, right? If somebody put out a free-to-play dinosaur game, I would try it out. Yeah, you know what? Let me try it out. Let me go for it, And me and the boys would go over there, and we would try it out for a week or two. And unless it blew Ark out of the water after that time, we'd be like, all right, well, this was fun and all, but let's get back to Ark. That's what we know and love. That's where we're great. This is cool. I wish you guys luck, but you're not for me. You know, and that's what happens a lot with these games. They will draw some players away for a brief amount of time, and then those players will trickle back to where they came from. Some will stick. You know, some will find this to be the new thing that they really love, but, you know, a lot of them won't. So it's kind of tough. But this is a drastic shift in tone for Ubisoft and Guillemot. Back in during the first quarter sales report, he touted the game's success, which launched its preseason back in May. He said at the time the quarter notably saw the launch of X Defiant. That is off to an encouraging start as we continue to grow the audience at a steady pace and plan a quarterly roadmap of content that will allow us to firmly establish the game over time. And the report also shared that the game that topped viewership charts acquired more than 10 million players within its first 2 weeks, with players praising the thrilling, fast-paced gameplay and the map variety. It also declared the game outperformed expectations thanks to acquisition and strong average revenue per session day. Henderson claimed the game had over 1 million unique players in its first 2.5 hours and over 8 million in the first week. I call those numbers into question, but, you know, it is what it is. You think Guillemot was lying there, and what do you think now? You know, now that he's saying it's behind expectations, I mean, if that's how it was performing in the beginning, then I don't know what their expectations were. I have a feeling he was lying. He was padding the numbers, hoping things would get better, and they haven't. Let me know your thoughts down below, but that's not all we're going to talk about today. We got one more little thing here, and that is Ubisoft developers reportedly reveal company brushes off legitimate criticisms as toxic gamer talk and DEI policies have led to brain drain. Now, I think it was Asmongold was talking about it in one of his videos I watched, toxic positivity. And this was used when talking about Concord, and I think it's been used for Ubisoft as well. And you see it sometimes. There's a lot of toxic positivity online. You know, you get that severely, grossly overweight influencer, right? And she's out there in bathing suits and all that, and you got all these people, oh, you're beautiful, slay queen, and yada, yada, yada. And these people aren't telling her the truth that, you know, you don't look healthy. You maybe should change your diet and maybe do some exercise and maybe get yourself in better shape, or you're going to die young. You know, we see it also in the trans community. You're like, oh, look, I'm the beautiful woman. And it's it's a guy my age in a dress with a 5 o'clock shadow, some sloppy makeup. He looks like a whore on her way back at the end of the day, you know, from a long night, and crappy heels, and just, and everybody's like, oh man, you're so beautiful. Yeah, you got this, girl. You go, slay queen. That's toxic positivity, and I think that's a thing in gaming too, because a lot of these weirdos, these activists and all that, will just talk each other up for the sake of it, even though it's unhealthy and it's disingenuous, right? You know. So anyway, alleged Ubisoft developers claim that the company either ignores legitimate criticisms of its business practices in games or brushes it off as toxic gamer talk. They also claim that the company's DEI policies have led to the loss of talent in both technical expertise as well as creativity. And I'm not surprised, man. I'm not surprised. You know, we live in a day and age where a company can directly speak with a consumer and not have anybody in between them, really, right? There's no... People aren't calling in on the phone and all that. The actual president of a company could sit there on Twitter or any kind of social media and monitor an account and watch what's going on and see what people are saying about their game. They can go in and they can look at the hashtags, they can check things out and all that, and they can see exactly where their product stands in the grand scheme of things and make real-time adjustments to things, you know? They can look and say, oh boy, we released this game and people are saying that we don't have enough servers. And I've seen, you know, a million posts about that. Let's get more servers up. Let's get them up now. Put out an announcement, apologize, say we're working on new servers and we're going to have them launched within 24 hours, and then do it. You know, you have this time. This is a beautiful time to live in for business. You know, if they put out a trailer and everybody hates something about it, well, this gives the opportunity, instead of just saying, well, they're just toxic, they don't need to buy it if they don't want it. You know, if they don't like the female character, they're all sexist. If they don't like the black character, they're all racist. If they don't like the transgender character, they're all transphobic. You know, it's an easy write-off without engaging in the actual conversation about what is wrong with the game and learning and maybe going, you know what, maybe this isn't the best choice here. Let's rethink this. you know, and then they can go back to the drawing board on it and rethink it and really kind of think about, say, is it worth keeping this character design the way they are for all the backlash we're getting? You know, we've got 100,000 tweets in the last 2 hours about our game, and, you know, this many were about this character, and they were negative. You know, there were some positive ones. There's always the Slay Queen and You Go Girl and all that kind of stuff that goes out there, but that's that toxic positivity. And if that's within the culture of the company, well, that sucks, because people need criticism, right? People, products, everything needs criticism. Forget right here. There's something called the 10th man, okay? And it's like in a room full of men that make decisions. I think this is something in Israel or something within the Jewish faith or something like that. Anyway, you've got 10 guys, right? Advisors, whatever they are. And they're talking about something. And if 9 agree on a resolution to a problem, it is up to that 10th person to push back against it and say no, and be the devil's advocate, so to speak. You know, so it's good to have criticism. It's fantastic, actually. You won't grow. Whenever I create something, I've written books, I've worked on movies and all that, I can have 100,000 people tell me they loved it, right? I thought that was excellent. I think it was amazing. I haven't had that many, of course. I'm just using a round number. But, you know, I loved that. That was great. It was amazing. It was beautiful. Yada, yada, yada. Perfect. Thanks. I love it. You're feeding my ego. It makes me happy. Perfect. If I have one person go, you know, that book sucked, that's the person I'm going to reach out to and be like, so why? You know, why did it suck? You know, I get crap on my videos sometimes, and, you know, I'll take legitimate things into consideration. Like, oh, you know what? All right, well, thanks for that feedback. You know, sometimes it's just people being hateful, and those people can go pound sand. I'll just make fun of them. But, you know, there's a difference between legitimate criticism and, you know, just a little hate talk, you know. And a lot of times with gaming, it starts off as legitimate criticism, and then it turns, you know, it turns bad because it gets ignored, or you get mocked for it by these companies and their community managers and their developers and all that kind of stuff. And then people get really nasty, and they lash back, and it goes back and forth, and it turns into this horrible, toxic space in gaming, you know. But anyway, the YouTuber Legendary Drops reports he spoke with a number of Ubisoft developers and specifically asked one how Ubisoft eternalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry, whether that's its repetitive design, agenda-driven content, or predictable games. The developer responded, at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in one of his videos, Ubisoft is filled with toxic positivity that prevents growth. And there you have it. After being asked about Japanese gamers sharing their own criticism of Assassin's Creed Shadows, the developer stated, the criticism hasn't been talked about, and Ubisoft only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly. And this isn't unheard of. Firewalk Studios and PlayStation engaged in similar practice with Concord. After significant backlash to the game being showcased during PlayStation State of Play, at the end of May, Firewalk Studios director IP Kim Kreens eventually addressed it in an interview with VGC nearly a month later. Yeah, that trailer. That moment is such a tiny slice of everything that we've been working on for years and years. We're excited for the game, and for the IP, and for the game to be in people's hands, and the IP people to be in people's minds. Well, you failed. She continued, I'm personally very excited for the IP, for folks to delve into a Galactic Guide, if that is something they choose to do. For those vignettes to come out on a weekly basis, you'll start to fall in love with the depths of the characters. That's something you learn week to week. Their personalities will unfold, the relationships will unfold for you, their backstories. None of that is something you can get in a tiny little slice. But that's just the start. There's something there. So I'm glad folks watched it. I'm glad they participated. And I can't wait for them to see more, to see everything that is there. Well, none of that's going to happen now. I mean, it barely lasted 10 days before it was taken off the market and refunded completely. Those little vignettes, they're not coming. Nobody cared about the characters. The characters are ugly. The gameplay was boring. The maps were sucky. Concord was a big DEI-infused mess, and it failed miserably, as it should have. So not only did an Ubisoft developer share that the company ignores the criticism it receives to its own detriment, but Legendary Drops also asked about Ubisoft's commitment to diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and the developer shared, so far, those initiatives have had no impact on the team I'm part of. However, it's clear that some topics are taboo. What happened is now people end up meeting with HR for trivial stuff. not adding smiley in a message. Wow. And adding an exclamation point at the end of a message because some are reporting it for harassment. I guarantee you those are women doing that. Reporting those things. Wow. I mean, I actually had that situation where my current job, when I first started there, somebody asked me for an explanation of something, how something worked. So I put together an email on it, and I concisely put it together. You know, this is how this process works. This step, this step, this step, this step, this step. If you need anything else, please let me know. Thank you. Goodbye. Boom. Done. Right? Very concise, clean email. And I was accused of being snarky and condescending by the female that I sent it to. And, you know, my boss came to me about it. He goes, I know you, and I know you weren't doing it that way, but he goes, I don't know what to tell you about this. I defended you on it, you know, because I know how you are. So, you know, when you deal with this woman, be a little more careful in the future. And I'm like, how? I mean, you know, she asked for something and I gave her exactly what she asked for. You know, what's the problem here? He goes, I don't know, put some emojis in the next email. So from then on, I put a little emoji at the end of an email or a smiley face or something. I never heard a boo again. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That was absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, but one of the things that developer shared, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exclamation point. One of the things that wasn't in the videos that Ubisoft had some controversy during the Me Too period, letting go managers in high positions, and some left of their own before they would be discovered, the developer added. Yeah, they had some issues with that. Anyway. Safe contact leads to limited opportunity on the gameplay side. Even for Star Wars, we had to work with Disney, which would have shut down most attempts at depicting a true criminal underworld with cruelty and drama. Yes, Disney, man. The developer then asked, what has been the message from management to the staff about Ubisoft's declining sales? What do they believe is the reason behind it? He responded, the fun fact is they don't talk much about it. They mainly focus on the fact that they reached their financial objectives, which are mainly achieved through casual player sales, not the vocal gamer community that are really sick of what you described in your video. Also, something to know is that through the years, the number of management floors have increased to ridiculous amounts, so communication is often blurry unless they come directly from HQ, and even then it's almost entirely corpo bullshit that isn't useful in the end, he added. Ubisoft's in some trouble, man. Definitely some big trouble. Another developer appeared to corroborate this information and informed Legendary Drops Ubisoft shows little regard for its developers. What happens in practice is that they essentially push out senior engineers, promoting junior developers to senior roles after just a few years of experience, oftentimes with experience in just one engine. Meanwhile, experienced developers with far broader skill sets are being overlooked. Men. The constant cycle of turnover within experienced leaders leads to a noticeable drop in quality, with more bugs appearing in their games. The passionate, dedicated developers leave, while those who are just going through the motions stay behind. This doesn't just affect the technical quality of their games, but also impacts design and creativity. For instance, you'll find designers working on FPS mechanics who have never played an FPS, or engineers who don't understand how the mechanics they're building are supposed to feel. There's a lack of passion and skill across the board, and the results are obvious. Yeah, there's a lot going on for Ubisoft right now. 2024 is a wash for them, and 2025, I fear, is just going to be another terrible year. They're going to suffer big time. We'll have to see what happens. I don't know if Shadows is going to release in February. I foresee it making another delay, maybe coming out late 2025. You know, which would not surprise me at all. Actually, people are speculating that they're going to lessen Yasuke's role in the game. I don't see that happening, even though there's so much of a push against him. I just feel like if you've made it this far in the game and you've based the game entirely on this character, how do you lessen his role? What are you going to do? You going to make Naoi the main character? She's not anything special either. She's just some bland female ninja that, you know, shouldn't even be a ninja, because she should be more of an infiltrator, not a warrior. Are you going to introduce a third character and really muddy the waters? Are you going to change the character model for Yasuke and then have to hire somebody else to redo the voice? You're not going to be ready by February if you're doing that. I don't know, man. I don't see them doing anything with Yasuke and changing him out. I think they're just kind of cutting their losses for 24, going into 25, hoping a lot of this crap blows over, and maybe by then Some other stuff will be happening that will, you know, maybe take the heat off of them a little bit. But we got to keep the heat on them, guys. You know, fight with your wallets against these kind of companies. Do not buy their products. They feel the heat. They lose money, and they have to change. They will change. They're going to have to listen to you and me eventually and give us what we want, which is great games, great characters, and, you know, lots of fun. Anyway, don't forget to leave a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel and ring that bell for notifications. I keep up with the news on a daily basis. I will see you guys next time. Until then, peace.